Hello, it's Dervin here, and again, I've been a bit distracted by creating more terrain. I should be painting the miniatures, but I'm creating terrain at the moment. And this is really my experiments with cobblestone roads, making cobblestone roads, terrain project style, because I've watched a few of his videos, and I went back and I watched them again, and I watched them again, and I went, I reckon I can do that. So I was chatting with someone at work about clay, and that's to make the masters in. And and I knew that they did pottery, and so I was thinking to myself, they'll know where I can get the type of clay that I want. So I was chatting with them about the clay, and they went, yeah, you want this type of clay. And I went, okay. And they said, I'll find out, where you can get it and how much it'll be. And I went, okay, that's good. The next day that they came into work, they came in with 12.5 kilos of clay, and they went, I found this at my place, and I was just going to throw it out. And this is the stuff that you want. So I got 12.5 kilos of clay for free. So I started making stuff. And the whole concept of what Terrain Project did in his videos is he basically you make a clay master, and then you cover it in silicon. So the first silicon I purchased was this window and glass silicon, black silicon here, and it was like $5 for this tube. And I'll talk a bit more about it as I explain. So what we've got here is the Mark 1. So I did a first little cobblestone. I just laid out a bit of clay. I tried to make a stamp like you did, but I failed dismally. So I made a clay master, and then I covered it in the silicon, and I cut the nozzle. I didn't cut the nozzle fat enough, and you can see in here that when I laid down the silicon that it didn't quite cover. And you can see these bits. I'll talk about these more as I get on to the other ones. And you can see here the lines and everything. This pinkish stuff here is just builder's bog. It's pretty expensive, really. So the silicon was $5, but this was $20. But when you buy larger quantities, it's much cheaper. But I didn't want to fork out too much money to start with while I was working out what I was going to do. But we'll move on from there. So you can see this. It was interesting. It was a good try. You can see the surface is quite rough as well. I don't have the clay master because it dried out and cracked and just crumbled away. So I went on to the Mark II, a much bigger one. Why make a small one when you can make a big one? And this is the mold. So same tube still. This is the same builder's bog, and I painted it up. So you can see this. It looks pretty good. Right? Not too bad. But it took me about an hour after it came out of the mold to clean up all the bumps, the mess. You can see, say here, where it didn't do too well, but you can start to see this here. So this is sort of the key point. What I'm getting at here is this. What it looks like, the silicon is sort of, I don't know. It looks weird, doesn't it? Right? And you're going, what is going on there? It's not a nice smooth shape. There's lots of this little tearing, and each time the clay just sort of fell away. It was crumbly once I'd finished casting, and I could pull this off. But yeah, that's not too bad. That's a pretty good result. You can see sections like this where there were bubbles when I didn't force the stuff in well enough. And so I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong? I'm not sure. So I went on to the Mark III. The Mark III was an attempt at creating a master that was a particular size. And you can see this is very similar to the Mark II. You ended up with the silicon stuck in there, and really rough. I've had a go at cleaning this up. You end up with clumps like this. You can see the surface here is quite rough. Not happy at all. And you can see here, like, this mold is just probably not usable again. Like, big chunks come out. I'm sitting there thinking, what's going on? And it's this. It took me a little while to work out, and I didn't even look back at it. This is a acidic cure, this silicon, and it was actually reacting with the clay that I had. So I was like, that's frustrating, because each of these masters I was making with the clay were roll out smoothly. I was using my sculpting tool and other little things to carve out the individual bricks, and they were taking hours and hours. And I made another one in between here, a master, and I realized I was out of silicon, and I just left it there, and it ended up shattering, and it was like 4 hours worth of work sort of thrown away. And I went, there's got to be a better way. So the first step was to find a silicon that says natural cure. So that was the first thing. This is a white one. Actually no, this is clear, non-corrosive, natural cure. So that was the first step. So I found that, and then I went, I don't feel like spending 4 hours to make another master that looks like that. And I'm happy with how they looked. So I made this crazy little tool. Now, what I can show you is this here, wrapped in Glad Wrap, is the master I used. You can see it's still flexible and everything. The clay is still good. I've wrapped it in Glad Wrap so it doesn't dry out, because I want to do another cast off it. And you can see with the little tool I used, it's like a lot more consistent. I then covered it with this one, non-corrosive silicon, which produced, and also notice that this didn't dry out and crumble away like it did with the acidic cure. That produced, let me just get it, it's sitting over here, this big chunk of silicon. But can you, there you go, look at that, look how crisp that detail is. Camera's getting a bit glary, but you can also see it's not flaking away like, let me grab one of the other ones. If you look in this one, you can see like there's a skin on top of the silicon and it's flaking away and it's really bad. This, come on, focus, look, it's just great, perfect. There's a couple of little sections, let me see if here's one here, but that's, I'm not worried about that. And I think there's one other, I think I found 2 or 3 little spots like that throughout, but it's brilliant. So what does it look like? Well, first off, you've got to remember that you've got to push the builder's bog into the mold, and if you don't do that, you get something that comes out like this, which looks good, but you can see all the little air bubbles all the way through, which is pretty terrible. But oh well. But if you do push it all the way in, you get something that looks really good. And from there I cut out a wonderful little section here and painted it up. It's just the same pink builder's bog, and it looks really good. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time casting more of these up and see how we go. I think I need to work out how I'm going to join them. You know, am I just going to do flat? Terrain Project did a groovy little thing where he cut in the grooves. I don't know if I'm that good at this. And I need to make T-sections, I need to make guttering and footpath and all of that, but I'm really happy with how that turned out. I did one more experiment excuse me, with using gap filler instead of builder's bog. So this stuff here is about $2 a tube, Alright, and I pushed it all into this mold here, and I got this flexible road. Now, the key thing here is you can see these big splotches. I let this sit in there for 3 days, and the only reason I got these is because it still wasn't dry. So it's probably going to take 5 days or something like that for that gap filler basically to dry, maybe 6. But you can see in the sections here where it's good and it's quite flexible. I don't know how sturdy it is. I want to leave it for a bit longer. The builder's bog, a little bit flexible. I suppose I'll show a section like this. Not too flexible, but quite sturdy, quite strong. I didn't push in any fly screen or anything like that that Terrain Project did. But anyway, there's my experiments that I've been running. I think this has been going for a little while. A bit excited about this actually. That's where I'm up to. I'm going to do a lot more with this, and I want to create a whole road section to fit in with the houses that I've got, and all the other terrain I've got. So that's sort of my next big terrain project that I'm working on, and I'm really happy with the results so far, and you'll probably see more. Hopefully you'll see like a whole heap laid out on the table next. So thank you for watching. Bit of a ramble, bit of a rabbit there, but I'm excited. So thanks for watching again, and keep hobbying, and I'll talk to you next time.